So my next guest is Fed. So welcome, Fed.
Hi, how you doing, Tina?
I'm good, thank you. How are you? And this craziness.
Yeah, I'm very well. Keeping sane, put it that way.
So Fed is the creator and director of Naturally Fed. He is also a naturopath, and he brews his own beautiful kombucha, which I'm sure he'll tell us a bit more about later on. So as you know, I started this with these videos because I was explaining how taking back your powers, taking back the control of your health is your responsibility. And I know that you have a really good story. So do you want to share a bit about what was your turning point?
Yeah, sure. So, I think that for me, obviously, I spent my life kind of quite sheltered in a sense. Coming from Italy, you're ingrained in a society, in a culture, that maybe is not the necessarily the best positive around food. There's a lot of gluten and things like that. Also, with the religious side, there's a lot of things that can be quite oppressing, and plus, it's kind of like the whole ethos, of the family. It can be quite controlling and over you. So I think over the years, I developed quite a lot of unhealthy habits, and my diet was quite poor, and I didn't come from a family that particularly exercised, or they were outdoorsy, still are. They'll go foraging and things like that, but not really the best at exercising. So I didn't have the best start in a sense, in terms of role models around me and things like that. So later on in life, I think I've become quite unhealthy because of that, because I let myself go with a lot of greasy foods. I was having takeaways like 4 or 5 times a week, if not more. I was working in London, so a very busy schedule, and picking up food wherever I could. No exercise whatsoever, and just putting on weight, and feeling really depressed and unhappy. I also developed a lot of physical symptoms, so I had a carpal tunnel really bad, to the point that I couldn't hold my mobile phone to my ear. Also at work, I had to have an adapted keyboard and mouse and things like that. And I really thought that I was going to become disabled over time, because things were becoming worse. And I was suffering a lot with sinus issues as well, and just being ill constantly. Every couple of months, I would be quite unwell. So for me, it was a case of I I wanted to do things, and I knew that I needed to lose weight, and that was one of the big problems that I had. And I ended up even going to get myself a gastric band, which I know now in hindsight was not the solution. It didn't help me lose the weight that I wanted to lose. In fact, if anything, it just caused more problems over time. But it was just a totally wrong mindset. So it was about me taking control and taking back the power, which at that point I wasn't aware at all of, how to do it. But I've always been quite focused, and kind of I've always had that mindset of going to get it. I've had a lot of things that I was told, you'll never get there, you're never going to do it, you'll never achieve it. So I think that set me on a path of like, no, sod you, I am going to do it, and just kind of plow through and get there. So I decided to turn things around, and after a holiday, where I was really unhealthy, I went on a cruise. So you can just imagine 24/7 food. For me, it was just a case of, am I hungry? Yeah, of course I am hungry. There's a restaurant I haven't been to. There's dishes I haven't tried. Get them in. So it definitely was not a healthy holiday. But I was really, really ill as a result of that as well. So by the time I came back, I didn't enjoy the holiday as such, because obviously I was so bad, and I thought this, I need to do something about. And I ended up enrolling on my naturopathy course with the School of Naturopathic Nutrition in Cardiff, and tips. But it's definitely something that I think is important to kind of get informed about the alternatives, and kind of look at, what is, if you, what is it that I can do? This virus is out there, yeah, and obviously we don't have control over that, and we don't have control over other people, over the shops opening times, over the food that we're going to be able to get, how much toilet rolls we can actually manage to get hands on, and all of that. It's like, of course everyone's going to get stressed about this stuff, but what can I do? Not what can they do for me, is what can I do to improve my situation. There's so many things that that are not in our control. So look at the things that are important, right here, right now. Important, to look at, almost making a list of things that make you happy, things that make you smile, to change that mindset. So when I was saying I was stuck in a rut, pretty much, because I was thinking, this is my life, this is what I do. And and of course, if you wake up on a bad day and something bad happens, or something that you're not happy about, you just can end up spoiling the whole day and create this vicious circle, or this downward spiral of negativity in your life. And I didn't know, when that was happening to me before, that I could actually turn that around. And it is about being kind to yourself. So if you find yourself in a situation that is stressful, change that pattern. Start thinking, okay, out of my list, what can I do that is going to make you, make me feel different. Is it a song? So stick it on, wiggle your bum, have a dance, or phone someone that makes you smile, like you're smiling now. We can't help, but laugh when other people are laughing. Laughing is infectious. So really surrounding yourself with the things that make you feel great, and make sure that you tap into those things when you're feeling negative, and when you're feeling that there's no answer, or when you're feeling scared. Also, within that, it would also, I would say, being kind to yourself is also about the food that you eat. So making sure that you're putting in the right things. It's not just emotional. Being kind to yourself is also about the exercise, the food, the drinks. So is everything around you. So if you're eating rubbish all day long, you're not going to feel great about yourself. So make sure that you're sticking something in. I always advise people to at least eat one raw vegetable or fruit with every meal. Just make sure that you're putting in that nice fresh energy, from the plants. I was definitely the worst at routines. I always led a very chaotic life, and probably to a certain extent I still do. But for me, it was about trying to figure out in my day what I needed to cram in to make sure that my day was working. So obviously there are things that will be out of your control. So maybe a phone call, or if you're in business, it might be an email, it might be someone visiting or whatever. But obviously those are things that are going to be out of control, so they might throw your routine ever so slightly. But I think that it's important to almost have a schedule of your day, or your week, or your month, and really try and stick to it as much as possible. So I try to maximize my time. So I tend to give myself between 10 and 2 p.m. as my working day. It doesn't necessarily always work, because those are only 4 hours, but I try to do 4 hours of intense work. So to really put my head down and get on with the things that I need to do, which then obviously leaves me loads of time for everything else. It doesn't mean that I don't do any other work outside of those hours, because a lot of the times I might have an order, or I might have a meeting, or a customer wants to have an assessment, outside of those hours. So by all means, I still do that, but I make sure that I put in some time for myself in the morning. So whether it is doing some priming exercises, yoga, meditation, things that really can soothe your soul. I make sure also to have my breakfast, giving time for that, and to prepare, for the rest of the day as well, so that I don't get too tempted to have junk food or things that are, ready made, because that is important as well to me. And then I try to make sure that I put in some hour, some time for exercising myself, for taking the dogs for a walk, being out and about in nature, which is really important to myself. And trying to stick to that routine, putting in my cleanses, during the year. So I know that there are certain times of the year, especially with the change of season, where it's important to cleanse and to look after, your detoxing. And so I schedule those times in my calendar, so I make sure that I have reminders, just to make sure that I do those things, because I know that if I don't, I'm going to suffer. So really scheduling is important, and making sure that you stick, to your schedule. Where focus goes, energy flows. So it's very much about taking control of what you have in your head. And if I get annoyed about something that has happened to me, because I don't know, maybe a shop that I was supplying to has I don't know, has stopped ordering for whatever reason, or it might be the a friend of mine has said something that is out of line. In my head, I can have that negative thought that is going to start going round and round and round, and thinking, what have I done? Have I done something wrong? Have I said something wrong? And I'm an overthinker by nature. So, I can really, really get stuck in that negative thought. And all of a sudden, I just find that I'll end up answering back negative to people that haven't done anything to me, and I get more annoyed with people around me. And an email comes through, and I'm not reading it properly, but I'll find the negative stuff in it rather than the positive. So if I keep feeding those thoughts, I know that I can really, really go downwards and become very depressed, very negative, very anxious. And it is very much about what you give importance to. So you need to snap out of that mindset, do something that will change your stance, change your way of thinking, letting go of a lot of negativity that might be around you. And there might be a physical side to it as well. It's not just emotional, and I'll tell you that in particular as well. But when it comes to letting go, is about sometimes letting go of situations or people that we have around us that might be quite negative. And of course, there might be situations where that is tricky, because maybe we're looking after someone that has got a mental health condition, or or some illness that, of course, we can't do anything about. But I'm not saying it in a way to be disrespectful to people, or to be awful in a sense. But really, we need to limit the amount of negativity that we have in our life. And if we're spending a lot of time with people that are negative, then of course we need to do a lot to recover ourselves from that vibe, that situation. So it's important, again, going back to the first point, looking after yourself. But it might be decreasing the time to remove that negativity, or otherwise you increase the time that you look after yourself. And I was saying also the physical side. So letting go sometimes is also about the fact that our body might not work properly. So we might be constipated, and we need to let go of things that are inside of us. And so cleanses and detoxing, making sure that we remove that toxicity from our body. Very, very important. And if there are things that we've been holding on for a long time, so whether we are resenting people, whether we've got another type of unresolved business, then we either resolve it or we let go of it.
If you think of yourself as like a battery on a mobile phone or something, so if you're surrounded with negativity, your energy will just drop. So it's just
Absolutely.
making sure that you keep your battery full.
Yeah, and I don't know whether you've ever heard of the expression about emotional vampires, or emotional leeches. Um, and again, I don't mean this with any disrespect, but there are some people that we might have around us that really are draining our energy. So, people that have a low vibration because maybe they don't have a lot of excitement in their life, or maybe they might be totally happy people. I'm not talking about people that are depressed. I'm just talking about people that sometimes need that excitement and that energy in their life to be able to function. So they tend to latch on to people that are very high functioning, very high energy, and so that they can kind of drag that energy into themselves. And obviously that can deplete us. It is, like you said, it is like a battery. So if you are in that situation, you need to top up your energy, and you either do that by yourself, by doing things that make you happy, or otherwise you go and steal it from someone else, which obviously is not a nice thing to do. But we also gravitate to people that have got that, that we don't have. So we got to be careful as well of not stealing from others, and understanding how we can top up our own energy, which is what I was saying earlier on, is very much about being kind to yourself, doing the things that make you happy, and dancing around, whatever it is, watching a comedy, but things that really can impact on you, and the good foods as well. The energy comes from those as well, or from air, from prana, from meditation, all the things that are around us. So it is about really understanding about the things that are holding us back, the things that that we think, I'm never going to do that, or I'm afraid of heights, so I'm not going to be climbing up that mountain or whatever. I think that is really, really disempowering, and we need to understand, why am I so afraid of that? What's the worst that can happen? And it is a little bit about emotions as well. Whenever I was talking to people, I remember reading a book when I was 14, and I'm not a book where I do a lot of reading, but there's a lot of topics that interest me. But this was one of the first books that really made an impact in my life, and it was Wayne Dyer, and it was Your Erroneous Zones. And I don't know if you've ever come across that book, but there was something that really stuck with me, and it was about love in particular. And it was about why people are afraid of saying I love you. And in that book, it was just saying about how sometimes people are fearful of not hearing it back. So if you say I love you, they're afraid of not getting the I love you too back, so they don't say it. And I was thinking, this is really making sense for me, because in the book it basically explained that at the end of the day, if you've got that emotion inside of you so strong that takes you to the point of wanting to say I love you to someone else, then why should you stop yourself because of someone else's response? That's someone else's feeling. So you're in control of your feelings, so you should say it. And what's the worst that can happen? What if they say I love you too? Indeed. But just because you didn't say it, you're not going to know whether that person would say it back or not, which is worse. And if they don't say it back, maybe it's your time to move on. So that is important as well. So is understanding, where is our fear coming from? Is it because of someone else, or is it our own fear? Is it within our head? And pushing yourself to discover where you can go to, pushing your limit, and and discovering what you're worth, or what you're capable of doing. I mean, during these times, we're stuck in the house, and I discovered carpentry. Never touched any sort of wood or screwdrivers before, and I've ended up building decking and this pergola that I'm sat under, and as I'm falling on top of my head. So again, I wouldn't have discovered that had I not faced my fears and pushed my limits. And I feel so grateful and amazing, for having had these opportunities, to do these things, and I think that is really much about just unleashing the potential within yourself, and I think that everyone should peel those layers of fears. What would people say? What do people think of me? Do they love me, or whatever? And really just focus on is this real? Is it real fear, or is it just in my head?
Okay, so I can't leave you without mentioning your amazing kombucha.
I've got a kombucha range, which I've branded as the chakra range. There's 8 different flavors, the original, and then there's a 7 flavored kombucha, and they all help emotionally and physically to whether you're looking at cleansing or nourishing your body, or whether you're working specifically on certain conditions, health conditions, or certain feelings, they can really help you. But kombucha generally is a probiotic, so it's really good for your digestive system, and of course that is at the basis of our health. Everything that we do is impacted by what we eat and what we drink. So looking after your gut can have a lot of impact on your body, as well as in the way that we feel, because there is a link, with a vagus nerve between the stomach and the brain, so we can really influence anxiety, depression, things like that through eating good foods and looking after our gut. Thank you very much for this opportunity to link up and to broadcast. I hope that has been helpful for some of your followers and the people that know me. Hello, and hopefully catch up soon as well.
Awesome. Thank you for joining me, Fed. Been great.
Thank you very much, Dina. Lovely to see you. Take care.